When you first set out, there was no lockdown. This whole madness of COVID hadn't really took off here in the UK just yet. You started filming and you said you were going to do a short film. What was your plans for that film? Where did you want to go?
I was traveling in January 2020 in Myanmar, completely off the beaten track. On the way back, I came back via Beijing. That's end of January 2020. And suddenly I'm thrust in this Orwellian monolith of an airport with everyone muzzled and not knowing what the hell was going on. And I asked someone, what's happening? And they couldn't speak English very well. And I thought they said something like a chemical leak, or I thought maybe it's like a Fukushima or Chernobyl. But it just didn't feel right. It just felt very oppressive and very anti-human. So I didn't wear a mask. I didn't know what was going on. I just felt it's not right, instinctually. And anyway, came back to London and it felt like, back to normal now. And I really want to get creative, especially after traveling. And I thought, let me just make a short crime thriller about a group of shady characters who lure in a guy into their world. It was just going to be a little experimental piece, maybe a bit of style over substance. But then as we started shooting, this was around about February, March, slowly, I start hearing these terms, self-isolate, and these odd terms, and people starting to sort of behave very strangely and really weird. And it was all kind of just building up and people starting to lock themselves down and doing really strange things. So as I started shooting in March, I was starting to get a hint after 3 or 4 days of shooting that this film was going to be something more. And then when the actual lockdown was announced, it felt like I just sunk. I didn't think that was going to happen. And I could already feel a very dark energy from the moment it was announced. Then after that, the film started to take a life of its own. I just started to seep into the movie themes of the madness, the psychosis, the surrealness, the oppressiveness that was starting to unfold.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I think that's really even more phenomenal for me because you're on a completely different path when it all kicked off, wanting to make a short film, and then suddenly all of this madness happens, and then your whole ethos changed and your philosophies, and you start to evolve. And the other thing that really struck me about this film is it reminded me of the German expressionist cinema, except obviously in 2020 you shot it, but almost 100 years since that, the peak of the expressionist cinema of Germany. And it's really very special, but maybe for a lot of audiences have found that perhaps it's quite unique to have a film where there's not much dialogue, hardly any dialogue. And sometimes that's always a problem with film, the ones that we get from Hollywood, because it's so agenda-driven, it's so much propaganda, it's almost like a political institution, not really a film industry. And so they're feeding you all this stuff and telling you this is what we want you to get out of the film, whereas the book's fantastic because you can read it and interpret it and imagine it yourself. But what's so beautiful about your film is we're not used to it because we're fed so much bullshit. But here you've got some time to become the owner of this film and think about what it is that you want to take from the film. So I could ask you about the leaves. A lot of people have asked me about the drug leaves. What's that all about? Is that liver? Is it this? They said, don't bother asking because you won't tell us. It's up to us to interpret it. What's your thoughts about not having any dialogue? Why did you go down that route?
Because I didn't have a budget, so I had to pretty much cast first come, first serve kind of thing. So with some of the performances and acting and when dialogue was spoken, I wasn't really feeling it, and I just wanted to instinctually do something a lot more visual. And 2020 for me was very visual, a lot of people were muzzled up, so you're not getting much dialogue, and if there is, you can't really hear them. I was just observing everything around, just instinctually seeping that into the movie, and that's why it became so visual. And also I was trying to capture an atmosphere, a mood as I was going along. Now looking back, I understood what that was, and it was almost trying to capture this mind virus. Something going on in the unseen. I could feel sort of dark forces were in the living room now. They're here amongst our family, mum, dad, your son, and it just felt some sort of force is kind of closing in on us, and we've got to really band together. And what I was trying to do with the film through the visuals and through the sound was to try to capture this unseen, manipulative, distorting force that I felt was lurking very close to us at that time. And as far as the drug leaves are concerned, not to sound pretentious, but once you speak about it, what my interpretation is, and you give that mystery away, and I think maybe some years down the line perhaps, but It's allegorical and symbolic.
Another thing I noticed at the time, you can't help it, you're picking up on all these Netflix shows and all across the world, whether it's a Korean drama or a drama from Canada or Denmark, US. And here is the mass mandates have come in. And pretty much everyone's donning a mask. Even in London, you walk around struggling to just find one person without a mask. And then you turn on the TV and no actor on TV is wearing a mask. This film is the first film, it's a definitive film for me, and the only one I've come across as a feature film that's actually an antidote to all the horrible tyranny of the lockdowns and the whole COVID farce. Made you decide to have these characters all masked and the way that you thought about it? What were you trying to convey? You call them masked zealots.
Well, it felt like the natural thing to do. It wasn't like, oh, this is something different. This is what's happening around me. And creatively, I want to try to feed off what's going on around me and try to decipher and create something and express something. So it just felt the normal thing to do. It's just this madness is unfolding around you, and that's what I wanted to try to draw upon. I wasn't at the time, oh, this is a film about us and them, and these are some rebels. Or no, it's not black and white like that. There's arguably maybe two sort of groups of people forming in the film, but each getting corrupted in some sort of way. And perhaps that was a bit of myself in there that seeped into that film before 2020. It's like a journey of self-discovery was when I look at that film. That's what it was. I saw a documentary by Francis Ford Coppola, Apocalypse Now. I think he spoke about filming in the jungle. It felt like going to war. This kind of felt like I was shooting in the war when it was actually happening rather than after it. It did feel like a real heavy psychological warfare. And I felt I was right in the midst of it out there in March, April, when there was hardly anybody out there. It felt very, very dark and challenging, and you're just the only one out there. And even though you feel like that's the normal thing to do.
I know that you said to someone like the lead, Chris Chung, just do nothing, but what instructions, what information are you giving to the cast? Because the performances are phenomenal. The cast had to go through almost hell and back, 24-hour days, really grueling filmmaking with no budget. What instructions do you give to your cast to get that kind of performance?
There's a lot of technical things that you do to draw out the performance, but really and truly, first and foremost, it's manifestation and energy. I was really switched on at that time because of the circumstances, very focused and very alert. And that energy, passion, manifestation was the ultimate sort of force to draw out performances and feelings that I was in tune with. And then into the 5 sense level, there's techniques and things that you do to bring that out. And I was very interested in ambiguity and mystery. I think that's much more interesting to watch rather than everything being on the nose and spelling everything out, because life is not like that. Let's say you go for a job interview and the person interviewing you is a prick. Sometimes you sort of bite the lip and say, yeah, okay, oh, thank you. And inside you go, oh, I hate this guy or whatever. We don't always express, what we're really feeling. And I think that ambiguity, particularly with Chris Chung's character, was integral to the movie. But first and foremost, I just didn't like the sort of musical theatre acting style that he seemed to be conditioned with. And I thought, let's try and find a way to strip it all down, and then I can see something very interesting in this character and let the audience try to feel and work out what's going through this guy's head. And also as part of the programming of the character when he's a child, when he escapes into nature, that there is a person there, and then the emotions come out when he's split up from the girl. But then after that, there's some sort of programming by the darker forces that are grooming him that took away all of that, and hence why he's become a very cold and calculated guy.
I talked to a lot of people about the film who were at the premiere in London, and a lot of people were saddened sometimes by the ending in the sense that it was very tragic.
It's part one, by the way, of the trilogy. There will be a lot more positive stuff to come. There wasn't some sort of grand, lovely, beautiful ending and people go off. It just didn't feel like that. It was not calculated where, it has to be a dark ending. Because what I was seeing at the time that was going on around me was a lot of betrayal of self, the betrayal of your own soul, and then acquiescing to certain things that maybe deep down are wrong and they're not right, but you're still going along with it, and I found that that's a betrayal of the soul to some degree. Of course, there was a lot of people who felt that no, that's not, that's what should be done. But I felt that there was a lot of people deep down felt something's not right, and they're giving a part of their soul once you acquiesce to those things that are just unjust. So I think that's where that ending came from, that yes, he's been groomed for this dark side and he's chosen this power, but then there's a sense of regret. And that's what I think a lot of people were going through, who now seem to be regretting a lot of choices and a lot of decisions they made.
What's the message for you, the takeaway message from the film?
The energy is to take the power back to self. And also with the making of the film is sometimes we give our power away and we're looking to the big institutions, and whereas you have the power if you can tap into it and carve out your own destiny. I didn't set out to make this film, I want to convey a message or wake anyone up. It was just an expression and a feeling of what I was going through at the time. In the documentary, the making of this, probably more of a message, which is about empowering yourself, and that we can achieve much more incredible feats. It's almost like we're being conned by certain institutions, where if we take the bull by the horns and if we connect with people and push back from a lot of this tech stuff, there's so much more that's possible.
Simon Elmer said something amazing based on watching the documentary. He said, be the director of your own life and don't follow someone else's script.
Perhaps maybe in the film there's some sort of sense of reflection, like a mirror, that I wanted to put out.
So that's all my questions for now, but does anyone have any questions that you'd like to put forward, please?
We've sent it to a few distributors and they've said it's too niche or too experimental. When we first sent the trailer to some distributors, they raised a few eyebrows with the whole masks and some of the feeling that they got. They're more comfortable distributing Zombie with a Shotgun or something, or lesbian vampire killers, a lot of fast food junk. They say, oh, we don't know how to market this. But as we've seen from the Leicester Square premiere, a huge super screen sold out and it's very easily marketable. I don't see that as an issue. So it hasn't been so positive. And a few distributors that have made some offers, again, we're reluctant to sign straight away because you're sort of paying for their hotels in Cannes and for them to kind of piss around. There's no real passion to really understand how to market this film, to make the marketing interesting, to find interesting ways to distribute the film, to get out to communities. There just doesn't seem to be any passion, as far as I'm concerned, with the stuff that they're churning out. It just really feels like fast food junk, just chuck it out, here today, gone tomorrow. That's a lot of the industry, how they're operating at the moment. However, we've got an incredible team of people, and the people like yourselves that are helping push this out, who are craving for something different, something fresh, something that's going against the status quo, and something which has a lot of attention and care to detail and is taking people on a journey. There's definitely huge demand for that. We've seen that with some of the screenings we've already had and the people we've connected with who'll get it out there no matter what. I don't really watch many films now, so I don't really know what's out there, but from the feeling I get, people I talk to, there's just nothing, not of any real quality. It's amazing to me, because like I said, there's a part of me at the time, I knew that we were doing something daring, just even filming in the lockdown. I still expected there's still going to be many other creatives and artists from not just film, but music, art, etc., paintings, whatever. There'd be a whole lot more. And I grew up in London in the 80s and 90s where there's a bit more of an edge and a lot more rebellion. So I was stunned that that was not the case. But I also understood why as I was going through 2020 and beyond, and the years of conditioning and slowly softening and dumbing people down. And then tech came in the sort of early 2000s and really kept people more and more comfortable. And I think comfort is not where the action is at all. That's not where the magic lies. You've got to get out there and dive in. But that seems to have been lost amongst a lot of people, a lot of the youth as well, perhaps. So. I work with a lot of young people. There's a lot of young people who were involved in the making of this film. And I can tell you one thing, it's not doom and gloom at all. They've been heavily bombarded and attacked quite brutally over a long period of time. However, there's still an instinct amongst a lot of young people. If the energy is right from a lot of people like ourselves, it can just switch and turn around because the instinct is still there to be free. Yes, they're battling against a lot of conditioning, the education system, the programming system. Start from self. You know, there's a lot of people like, oh, what can we do about them? Or I feel for them. But you're not looking at yourself first to be the better version of yourself. Embody everything that you stand for first and foremost and look at yourself in the mirror. If you can get yourself in optimal condition mentally, physically, in your soul and embody what you want to see in the world, energetically, that's going to transfer to a lot of the youth and a lot of people around. I know that from this film because there was a lot of youngsters who came with me on this journey and they wouldn't have come had I not embodied that. I didn't preach to them or tell them you must do, you know, or don't do this or don't do that. I just, you know, embodied that as much as I could. And I could see that that had an effect on them energetically. So I think first, let's get ourselves in order. We can raise our game a lot higher. I know this. Then you can look into the details, your family. Let's look at the family. What are you doing at home? I see a lot of people giving their kids a mobile phone who are so-called awake people, and they're giving them the mobile phone, they're giving them Coca-Cola and all that crap. So at least pay attention to the little details before thinking of this bigger thing that, oh, they're all going to get swamped and swallowed.
That's very well said. We've got a fine young man, 19 years old, spoke so eloquently. You really seem to understand the film. You took so much from it. So there we have one young man who's, you know, going to take the world forward in a better place. Yeah.
All of the soundtrack in the film was original score created for the film. Barring one track, which was the track in the club scene. Other than that, everything was created from scratch by an incredibly talented composer called Greg Berkhamshaw, who I'd worked with before. And we spent a lot of time together on the sound and really wanting to capture in as much detail as possible what I was talking about earlier, the mind virus. I remember when we started the first couple of tracks that Greg sent me, it was just nowhere near on the mark, and we kept discussing, and then one day suddenly he created, I think it was the track that's on the hilltop scene near the opening, and I was like, that's the sound of Gods of Their Own Religion. And then from there, bit by bit, built the soundscape. And we also got a singer called Fifi Rong, who did some of the vocals, and then we mixed that. And she also did some of the Chinese tannoy that we hear repeating throughout the film. That came from some sort of feeling that the Britain in this film is run by Chinese-like state. And ironically, I met with a Chinese producer the other day who watched the film at Cineworld and was just fascinated. And she's like, Naeem, I've got to meet you, and I got 50 questions to ask you about this film. And she's only come from China 1 or 2 years ago, and she picked out all of these Chinese elements in the movie. And I said, actually, some of them I didn't even know were Chinese. But that tells you that there's a lot of Chinese influence in our society that we're not even aware. But yeah, a lot of detail went into the sound. We spent maybe a year. If we couldn't find a particular sound, I would just tell him a story, just a random story about the characters in the film, but not a scene from the film, just a subplot of the characters. And I would just talk to him, and he would just start playing. And then I would say, oh, the characters now drift here, and now they go into another dimension, and this, and he would just start playing away. And we would do things like that to create the soundscape. It was an incredible process that I was really proud of, because all the films that I'd done before, we'd always kind of messed up on the sound and the score and stuff. Growing up, I definitely admired a lot of John Carpenter's work with stuff like The Thing, Escape from New York. Ash would show me some international films by Wong Kar-wai, a Hong Kong director. Pete Takeshi Kitano, a Japanese director. Maybe there's a little bit of Fritz Lang's Metropolis in there. George Romero, he did a film called Dawn of the Dead and Night of the Living Dead, I think in 1978, set in this shopping mall, which had this subtext of consumerism and maybe the people are the zombies and that sort of stuff. And I started to fall in love with this idea of subtext. And then Kubrick's work, where you've got to kind of peel the layers and experience it rather than let me just watch it and then it's gone. Films that kind of stay with you. I think those are the films that I really enjoyed. And then some of the classic gangster films like The Godfather and, all of that sort of stuff. Go on, Sonny. His best bit in the film was when we were shooting, I think it was at about 10 o'clock and we went to wrap about 10. And I think, Sonny, you were like, you said we're going to wrap at 10 and he was already quite tired. And I said, we're going to wrap. And they were like 10:30. You started moaning. And then I was like, we're going to wrap at 3 in the morning. And then when they grabbed you, you went, ah! But, to be honest, if it wasn't Sonny, I don't think we could have gotten away with it, because we did film quite a few hours and he was a real trooper and kept going into the early hours. That scene when he's in the staircase and you've got these dark forces beating down on you, man. But as I was watching you on screen, it was just, wow, you just so naturally possessed that presence and that character, and it's so subtle. And when the mask came off in that classroom, it was just, I remember me and my DOP, Stephen Roach, we were going, yes, that's the one. And I think it was in one take, you just did it. But you had been through a lot as well, I think, at that time, and you probably just instinctually just felt it, and it was, you were incredible to work with and such a talent. Like, your presence it's incredible. I'm blessed in that way. We started around March 2020, and by May or somewhere around then, we had to stop because there was a few people who didn't want to continue in the lockdown. They were fearful and anxious. One of the lead actors, I was like, we got to do this scene at Heathrow Airport. And he was like, no, that's where the virus is rife. I can't go there. And we had to take a little break at that point because people were very, anxious and fearful. But not the majority of people in this film. There was a lot of people who worked on this, nearly 200. Most people really got behind it because they needed that outlet. I could feel it at that time, man. They didn't want to be locked in. They were struggling with a lot of mental health issues. It was tough. And when they would come on set, and most people on there were not, awake people. But once you're creative, you just forget about all your political views or whatever. You just muck in like kids again, and everyone's working together, and it really gave people an outlet. And I think that's why so many people got behind it. And we cared, we were sensitive to all the different people and characters and thoughts and feelings and views, and there was a real unity and togetherness at that time. But yeah, we then came back in June or July or something like that and just marched on very, very quickly. And that gave me a little time as well, that little break, to really be a little bit more clearer about what I wanted to do. And then we just went for it in July, and I think we were wrapped by October. It was always in me. It was building up before 2020, but because I was 1 foot in the industry and then 1 foot trying to do my own thing, it was kind of polluted and corrupted, and started doing some dodgy music videos and just getting caught up in the pretentious kind of stuff and a bit of mainstream seeping in. But then there's a bit of the real Naeem, kind of coming in there. But with 2020, all of that suddenly shifted, and I was able to really dig deep into what you call that, the spirituality, the feeling, the energy. And it's very hard to explain to people because people think it's hocus pocus. Yes, on one level, there's technical things that you do, but everything is driven by a belief, a passion, clarity of mind, clarity of thought. And then also sometimes, because of the madness around in our world, you sometimes get pulled back into the five senses. And that's when I started to try to also learn about little techniques that you can do. I would look at people like, let's say, for instance, Novak Djokovic in sports. What sort of techniques and methods does a guy like that use to withstand all of the stuff that he's doing, not just on the tennis court, but everything that goes on around him to achieve a high level of self? So I would look to people like that and study some of the techniques and try to implement that. And create a fascination with trying to be the best version of yourself that you can be, and try to impart that energy onto people that are around me. Very much driven by spirituality, if you want to call it that, and still tapping into it and trying to draw it out. And we slip up, we have ups and downs, but keep going. It really is just an experience. This is not real. And when that pressure comes off, as in the body being the headset and the real true I being the energy and the spirit that you talk about, then you start to flow a lot more. You start not giving a shit about certain things that you would, and that frees you up to really be your true self. Gonna bat it aside like it's gonna annihilate it. Been really strengthened by everything that's gone on, and now, as far as I'm concerned, you can't even touch me. It's like a bully, that once you eventually stand your ground, and you have to go through people throwing stones at you or spitting at you, but once you ride through that, it's like a bully in the playground where ultimately they've got the utmost respect for you. But those that are going to comply and follow that madness are the ones that are going down a very dark path. I wouldn't be too concerned about whatever they throw at you. Just try to be the best version of yourself you can be and do what you know to be right. And that in itself is going to push back a lot of the madness. And beware of a lot of the little tricks and things that it will throw at you to try to steer you off that course, is what I would say. We'll be on the lifeboats and not on the sinking Titanic. I need it, I tell you. It's been a long road lately. Stuff like sleep as well. That's part of the conditioning that I was talking about to get yourself in good state, and try your best to sometimes switch off. Even little things like I do, like just go into the garden, small little garden, but just spend some time in there and get away from all the tech and all that stuff, and just chill in the garden, do a bit of exercise and have a little cup of tea in there and just relax, even if I'm by myself or with my partner, Melissa, who's here. She's the one who's really opened my eyes to a lot of things going years back. So just try to surround yourself in those kind of environments. And yeah, sorry I went in a bit deep into it. Gods of Their Own Religion for me has only just touched the surface. Now I really want to go in and create a dystopian trilogy. But I really want to explore, what does it take for one to withstand all of that madness when it comes your way. And I also want to explore the resistance, because I came across so many incredible people during the outreach and activism in 2020, and people like Anna, who I was just in awe of, and I really want to do something that explores how these people were able to resist a lot of the darkness and madness, and something a lot more deeper and maybe not so overly stylized as perhaps Gods of Their Own Religion, but much more character driven and go into much more detail. At the time I heard it somewhere or I read it somewhere, Gods of Their Own Religion, it just struck me. I said, that is the title. All the other titles in my past work, I've never been happy with it. I've just never been satisfied. But maybe again, what you were talking about, when you're in the right state and doing it for the right reasons, and you're going from your true self, these things come your way, and Gods of Their Own Religion just hit me. And I knew straight away, without any doubt, that that is the title of the movie. Thank you. Yeah. Personally, I don't feel I've done that justice yet in terms of that voice, but it's coming. That's just touching the surface. It's not complete. It perhaps captures an essence and moments, but the complete article is to come, now that I've been surrounded over the last couple of years with such incredible people. As soon as God starts to really take a life of its own, then next year, definitely going to be shooting that film. At what stage, I'm not 100% sure yet, but I think it will probably be mid next year. And when we shoot and dive in, we're going to be really quick and swift. We've done some development work already on the whole story. So yeah, it's definitely coming. Brace yourself for the real first wave. And a quick thank you to all the, it's not a singular effort. There's an incredible team of people that I've been fortunate to work with. Some of them are here today. with Sharoz Sheikh at the back, who's my producer, my right-hand man, has been with me from the very beginning all the way up to now, when a lot of people have faltered or didn't have the stamina to live with that pace, and he's one of the big reasons that not only have we made this film, but we've even got it out there. So a massive shout out to Sharoz, and a huge shout out to Eagle, who's just been a force that has just, we were out in the West End nearly a year ago or so, knocking on doors, trying to get this premiered, and the Odeon turned us away, and all those corrupt institutions, but we never gave in, and that was thanks to you being such a force and believing in it all. And here we are now. As you always said, it's going to happen. And everyone else that's been part of the team, and especially my warrior, my love, past, present, future, beyond this reality, before this reality. You've showed me so much, and I wouldn't be here with that clarity, that spirituality that you talk about. You really did awaken me going way back in 2010 or whatever it was, and it's like, Naeem, look at it this way, and that was a game changer. So I owe you everything. I love you. Last words from Ash.
Just really honoured to be able to be here amongst all of you and share this moment with my brother. Just to make that film, it's meticulous. Every aspect of that film is just mind-blowing, breathtaking. To be able to achieve that on no budget, for most mere mortals, it's impossible. And you must be really channeling some real great life force from the universe that's able to take you to be able to do this. For most people, it's impossible, I think. But you've got everything. I mean, some people can get the picture right. I think you spoke a lot about the sound. Some people can get the picture right, or they get one or two great performances. But for me, the whole thing is just so meticulous, and it's so deep, and it's something that's just beyond the mind. It's like you're really tapping into the soul, I think. So
and you had a big part to play in that as well, because there was some of the dialogue, for instance, not just you being on set, but also some of the dialogue of the technocrat when he's talking about that stuff. We kind of just crafted that. Well, I think we were walking and then sort of talking about it and crafted that. My brother and I as well, we had so many ups and downs over the years, a bit like the Gallagher brothers, as I've always said. But when it mattered in 2020, we really came together, and we all had to fight our battles. You went through a lot of battles in the school, and you had to deal with that alone. But I remember coming together, and that strength brought us back together, and we're so close now, and I owe you so much as well. You're amazing. I love you.
We're all one family, really, aren't we? We're all really family. We're all energy, and we're all one, and the trees, and we get energy from each other. And if you can just keep approaching with this kind of attitude, this sort of no holds barred attitude, I think it all comes from love. And I think if we just do everything with love and appreciate everything that's given to us, because the universe is supporting us. What you've been doing here with all these people, one thing that was really interesting is that, the film's got some very dark themes, but with the camera switched off, everyone was hugging each other. All those people with the white coats who were taken away Sonny, and they were dragging him away and rough. And afterwards they were like really hugging, but just briefly for a little moment, this was like a cathartic experience for them. And they came together, put all their troubles aside, and the film was such a great outlet for them. Otherwise they would have been in isolation, a lot of those people, continuously, and it gave them something to do and something worthwhile. So I think love is the only truth, and I think if we keep that in mind at the heart of everything we do,
and everything else is illusion.
Illusion, yeah.
Thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart. You've been so inquisitive, you've been so in tune, and that's been wonderful to share that exchange with you. Your support, your energy, it means so much just here, spending time watching this film and listening to us as well. So it means a hell of a lot. And I wish you guys all the best and everything that you do. So yeah, let's go!
Let's go! Lots of love to everybody.